Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish, and I'm the host of this program. Well, you know what? I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning in for today. We have such an amazing guest. You are going to love our newest diva that we're going to be welcoming to our family. Her name is Cindy Jacobs, and this woman is absolutely inspirational and empowering. Some of the things that she is doing in Australia, and she is going to be sharing a little bit about that with us today. So, Cindy, welcome to the show today. I am just beyond excited to have you.
Thank you, Candace. I'm happy to be here.
It's going to be so much fun today. Well, Cindy, would you mind, because you're brand new to our show and all of our divas are probably like listening, it's like, oh my goodness, there's a new person. Could you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Okay. So I was originally born in the Chicago area, and I've lived in Australia for the last 40-something years. So I'm probably more Australian than I am anything else. And my background has primarily been in a corporate environment. So I was always drawn to be in a form of service. So I worked in change management, and so I worked for large corporations, oil companies, mining companies, and I did that for most of my career, just helping organizations, helping organizations transition through change. And in the meantime, sorry about my dog. In the meantime, I started to collect horses. I guess is the right way to put it. I've always had a passion for horses, and never had the right circumstances that I could bring horses into my life. And so those circumstances changed, and I was able to start to accumulate horses. So what happened was I had this parallel thing happening where I would go to work and I would notice people's behaviors, and then I would notice how the horses responded to me, and I'd think, well, there's some similarities here. And I eventually retired from corporate and moved to the country and spent more time with my horses, and then I continued to work as an executive coach. So I would travel into the city and I'd work with leaders in their organizations, and I discovered that they were having the same issues with their teams and their people that I was having with my horses. And what I learned was that just because I feed my horses doesn't give me leadership rights. So I became curious about, what do I have to do differently for them to engage with me, for me to be accepted as a member of the herd, to be the leader of the herd. And it's the same qualities that we look for, in our human leaders. I needed to be consistent. I needed to be respectful. I needed to be clear in my communication, and I needed to have a clear understanding of what we were doing. I had to maintain and create safety for everyone. So all of those qualities are actually needed in our human leadership roles as well as with the horses. And so they taught me how to be a better leader and essentially how to be a better human being. And so I eventually then started running programs for corporate groups to come down and learn more about being a leader and being a better member of a team. And then what I noticed was that people started to go really deep, really fast. And I realized I didn't have the skills to support them. And so then I became a counselor, a trauma counselor, and I studied trauma for several years. And what happens is that, in a nutshell, is that people feel safe around the horses, and then they just start to let their stuff come to the surface. And so the horses and I developed a modality for working with people in that capacity. And so through my counseling and trauma training, I now work with people who have severe, all range of trauma. So trauma is just anything that overwhelms us. So it could be moving location, it could be something that was said to us that overwhelmed us, or it could be, childhood trauma, emotional trauma, any kind of violence, any kind of accidents, anything at all that overwhelms us is a trauma, and it prevents us from living our lives to our fullest expression. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Well, I love what you're doing. And, we're hearing more and more about this every day. A lot of people are using animals as, with therapy. And, to me, it makes sense. I was fortunate enough to grow up on a farm and ride horses. And I was always at my most comfortable with my horses. So I can see this. I can see how what you're doing is, it's just honestly, Cindy, I think it's just a brilliant thing, and I love that you and all these other amazing people out there are using animals to help heal people. Because I think it gets down to that is that we need animals in order to balance ourselves again.
Yep, yep. And so, what I discovered, particularly with horses, because, all animals can support us and comfort us, and horses have a slightly different capacity as well. Mm-hmm. And I just forgot where I was going with that. But okay, so my herd of horses is a collection of horses that I've rescued mostly, and they are not trained, they're not ridden, they're not dominated, they're not controlled, and they have rights to their own body, and they have freedom to express themselves whichever way they want to express. So that puts them in kind of a unique category, that they're like a herd of horses that operate like a wild herd, where they roam and graze all day long, and they come in the morning, they have their breakfast, so they have a few mud cons, and they have their breakfast, and then they work with humans for a few hours, and then they go back down into the valley and disappear and roam and graze and do whatever horses do. So what I discovered is that the more trust they have in me, the safer they feel, so they know they're not going to be disciplined or harmed by humans, the more they express themselves. So they've all got personalities, but they also are way more willing to engage with humans because they have no fear. They have no fear that they're going to be controlled or made to do something that they don't want to do. So we get to see a unique expression. So it's not a trained or conditioned expression. So, for example, a lot of equestrians believe that if a horse turns its butt to you, its hindquarters, that's disrespectful. So I take that as information. So if the horse turns its backside to us, it's like, okay, I wonder what's happening here. I wonder what's going on for us that horse chooses to turn itself, turn its butt to us. So it's an opportunity to self-reflect. But if the horse is too trained, then it's not going to turn its backside to us because it knows that it might get smacked. So, working with horses that are untrained, unconditioned, actually give us a better experience of how we show up in the world, because they're giving us an accurate, unconditional response to us. And the moment we change, they change. So if we start thinking about something that happened in the past, the horse might just move away from us because we're no longer in the present moment, and we've disconnected technically. So the horse disconnects. And then if
I was going to say, can I ask you a question? Does that have to do with energy then? So they're responding to the energies around you?
Absolutely. So it's never personal. It's all about not just the energies around you, but we're this unique composite of energy that's made up of all of our life experiences, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs. If you believe in past lives and ancestral lineage, then it's all of that that's combined into this unique expression of who we are. And so the horses it's almost like a radio station where they can just change the dial. So they can tune into a frequency that you're holding, and they may start to respond to that. And usually the response is whatever has the biggest charge for you, whatever is blocking you the most in your life, usually has the most energy that's being held in your body. So the horses respond to that. And if you think of it this way, that when you enter into the horse's space, you're the shift in their environment. And so horses need to know moment to moment what's happening in their environment to stay safe. So when you enter their space, you're the shift. So their full attention is on you because they need to decide how safe they are around you and where you fit in the herd. So it makes sense then that their behavior is in response to you because that's what they're paying attention to. So yeah, it's all about energy. So your attention, your emotions, everything.
So this must be a really unique experience for you then when you are working with people that, as you were saying, have trauma, have stress in their lives, perhaps a lot of anxieties, and having them that horses come and be around them. How does that work? I'm quite interested in that.
Well, there's some neuroscience that I try to connect dots to. So I can go way woo woo, and I can also try and pull in some of the neuroscience and the physics around what actually happens. So if we go to the scientific end of the scale, so horses have a heart that is 5 times as big as ours and 10 times as heavy. And so we all know, well, we don't all know, but a lot of science shows us that the heart is the strongest, most powerful oscillating field in the body. And so if you can imagine then that the heart of the horse is this powerful resonant field that's pulsing. And for humans, our heart field can be measured out about 1 meter. And for horses, the heart field can be measured out about 5 meters. So they've got this powerful resonant field that's pulsing. And I work with 16 horses, and so I've got these 16 heart fields that are synchronized and pulsing this resonant energy. And horses, by a healthy horse, emotionally, physically, mentally healthy horse, has a very coherent energy because they need to be resting and digesting most of the time, conserving energy, so when there's a threat in the environment, they can respond to that threat appropriately, discharge the trauma energy, and then go back to grazing. So horses have this really powerful, coherent energy field. And what happens is that when we enter their space, we're usually not as coherent and regulated as them because we live in a Western culture. So we live in an environment where there's constant stresses. It's stress of paying the bills and, the traffic on the road and, cooking dinner and everything else in between. We live in this stressful environment. And so so our nervous systems aren't as regulated as the horses. So in physics, it says that the stronger, more powerful, coherent oscillating field causes the weaker, chaotic one to entrain with it, which means that we start to synchronize to the horse's rhythm. So our bodies start to be co-regulated by the powerful energy field of the horses. And what happens then is that we feel better because our bodies are working better. When our bodies are coherent, that means all the systems are working together in harmony. So our lungs work better, our digestive system works better, our brain works better, all of the functions within our body. If we're unwell, our body starts to self-heal because everything comes back into alignment. So being around horses can produce a sense of well-being, but there's a whole lot else that's going on underneath that. Like there's a lot of healing, and our bodies literally are getting tuned up by being in the horse's space.
Oh my goodness. So this is probably why, I've looked at your site. You've got a thing called the water hole. And to me, this probably, can you tell us about that? Because I think you've kind of mentioned it through what you were mentioning earlier. So this kind of ties it all together.
About the water hole?
Yes.
So
I think that's a
beautiful
hole, thing.
Yeah. So that's I created that event, so that happens once a month, and that's just open to the public, so people can come and experience hanging out with the horses. And so we do a mindfulness type of meditation. I often will invite people to focus on a particular, something that's happening. So the water hole that we had just 2 days ago, we ended up, I spoke about being the eye in the tornado. So how do we, so through a visualization, we settle into this sense of being in the eye of the tornado where everything is calm, and then whatever is happening around us, whether it's happening in our lives or on the world stage, that's the tornado, that's the storm, and that we can always retreat to the eye and let the storm settle. So we did a little practice around that, and then I invited them to, once they were established in the eye, to go hang out with the horses. So that could mean anything. You could sit with the horses, stand with the horses, pat the horses. Some of the horses are laying down sleeping. You lay down on the ground, So whatever feels like what you're drawn to do is just go hang out with the horses and continue to allow that experience to permeate through your body, and it just resets the nervous system and gives you a sense of connection and belonging and more resilience. So that's the water hole.
Oh, I like it. Why did it? Can I ask you why you decided to start that? Is it because of everything that you've learned and you decided to come up with that?
The reason I did it was because I wanted to give back to the community, and the property that I'm currently living on is quite a pretty spot. It's got a lot of trees around us and ocean views and views of the Otway Ranges, and it's in this valley, and so it's not accessible to the public. It's only the people who live here actually have access to it. So that was my original intention, was to bring people out to nature, into nature, experience the land. There's an Aboriginal overlay down here on our boundary, and there's a powerful energy field that's present on the property. And
nice.
So on another note, sometimes I go down to the creek where the energy is really strong, and there's an energy vortex down there, and I almost stagger as I collect firewood, because there's an energy down there, and so we have some fire ceremonies down there with the horses. But coming back up to the water hole again, so there's no water hole as such. We have a water trough, but the water hole is just metaphoric for gathering, like gathering at the water cooler. So it's just a gathering where people can come, spend time in nature, and experience the horses in a natural state, and it just has that capacity to settle the nervous system. People get a sense of who we are, and some people then ask to book in for private sessions, and so it's kind of like a try before you buy, so people can get a sense of it as well. Or past clients can continue to come and get a bit of in Australia we call it a top-up. I don't know what you call it there, but just a refresh.
Yes.
So reconnecting with the horses again. So that's what the water hole is about. But just coming back to, if I may, just coming back to this coherence and this energy field, I think that it's really, we can't say enough about it. I had a client a couple of years ago who came because she had cerebral palsy, and so she came here, and we pushed the wheelchair into the middle of the arena, and the horses wandered in, and they'd never seen a wheelchair before, so they were really curious, and they came over to sniff and check out the wheelchair, and she was not able to sit upright, so she was kind of hunched over, and her movements were quite jerky, and every once in a while her head would bob, and the horses would, they'd lean in to sniff her, and then her head would bob, and they would bump her, or she would bump them, and the horses kind of stood back for a second, and you could see the little cogs in their brains turning, like, what the heck is this? And so they were processing, what's going on here? And so after a little while, all of the horses laid down on the ground, flat out at her feet. So there's this, I've got this photo on my Sehorse website where there is this woman in a wheelchair, and there's a sea of horse bodies laying down around her wheelchair. There's one horse standing guard over her, and the rest of the horses are all laying down on the ground around her. And so what happens, and this is kind of a theory of mine, is that horses, when you enter their space, you become a member of the herd. They automatically accept you as a new member of the herd, and this is probably because they're in a, I don't know, maybe domestic environment, maybe there's a higher purpose happening here that I haven't tapped into or haven't explained. But they accept you as a member of the herd, and if your nervous system is misfiring, then technically you're a liability to the herd because you could be attracting predators. And so what they tend to do is they work on your nervous system to bring you into alignment with theirs for the safety of the whole. So here's this woman whose nervous system is really misfiring, and her movements are really jerky. And so when the horses lay down, what they've done is they've dropped their energy as low as they can go. So their breathing is as slow as possible, and their heart rate slows way, way, way down. And that causes the energy field to shift. And as a result of that, her nervous system starts to slow down and starts to entrain to theirs. And her movements became way less jerky, and she was able to sit upright. And that lasted for several hours after she left. She sent me an email about how her system had shifted after being with the horses, that she had less jerky movements and had more control over her body.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's an untapped power. There's another story that's really powerful too, where a friend of mine had a young baby who was about 5 months old and was they didn't know what her problem was, but she was diagnosed as being 100% deaf, 100% blind, and had little control over her body movement. So they didn't know exactly what the cause was. And she came, and I said to her, well, just come to her, bring her to the horses. Let's see what happens. So she pushes the pram, or what do you call it, the buggy. So she pushes the pram into the horse's carriage, yes. And so we're sitting there, and so for pretty much an hour, I just worked with the mom and just got her body to be as regulated and calm and coherent as possible. So, we can do a lot with our breathing and where we put our attention. And so the horses are around us, and I'm just helping her to come into this really balanced, coherent state. And then I said, just reach out and put your hand on your baby and imagine that you're sending this coherent energy to your baby, and see if you can co-regulate your baby, because now that you're in this nice, calm state, you touch her, and then you're co-regulating her. So she did, and a horse came over and rubbed its head up and down her arm, almost like facilitating, helping that energy flow. And then afterwards, we went up to the stable area, and for the first time ever, that baby started to make an effort to connect with the outside world. So not just crying because she was hungry or needed something, but more out of it was like an attempt to connect. It was like, baby talk, gooing and cooing and stuff. And so the next week she came back, and there'd been no medical intervention that had happened since then, except that she took her baby in to get retested. And that time she had 100% hearing and partial eyesight. And her capacity to hold her head up and control her movements had improved. So, my theory is that if we create more, it's profound. So the baby was actually connecting, it was actually, could hear again. So, and see again. And so my theory is that the body knows how to self-heal. The body knows what it needs. And so if we can support the body by creating more coherence, by stabilizing the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system controls every function in the body. It's the one that decides what chemicals to be released, where to send resources. Mm-hmm. It decides everything. So if that's misfiring, then our body is compromised. So if we can get that stable and functioning in an optimum way, then the body can start to repair itself and function the way it's meant to function.
Oh my
goodness! So that
goodness.
was pretty cool.
That's absolutely amazing. And, I know we don't have a lot of time here, Cindy, so I want to definitely have you back on the program to talk more about a whole bunch of other things that I think you could share with us in regards to your training and everything else. But last minute thing I want to ask you is, on your website, people can sponsor a horse. How can they do that?
Yes. They just have to email me, and we have a conversation about if there's a particular horse that they're drawn to, and how much they want to spend, and it just contributes to the horse's upkeep and care. And I send them regular reports on how their horse is doing. I'll send them a photo. And so the thing about that is it's all energy. And so the moment you choose to sponsor a horse, you've created an energetic connection with that being. And so, that's through quantum entanglement, or whatever you want to call it. And so there is a connection that's established. And so you're benefiting from that being, that horse, simply by creating that connection. So it's really, it's a mutual thing. So yes, the horse is benefiting because there's a sponsorship, and the horse is, it contributes to the horse's care, but you're also receiving back from that horse. Every time you think of that horse, you're getting the energy from that horse. And often horses, do this like astral travel in dreams and stuff, and people tell me all the time that they're getting visited by my herd of horses, or a particular horse, or the horses just come into their awareness on a regular basis. I don't have that luxury, but it seems that a lot of my clients do. So yeah, once you connect with the horses, it's like a constant connection. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. I'm going to ask you another thing. Is there any last minute things you'd love to share with our divas out there today?
Oh, you just cut me off guard. I think the last minute thing really is, just trust your body and honor what your body needs from you. We tend to treat our bodies in a harsh way, and we don't listen to the messages, the discomfort that's in our body. And as soon as you turn to your body and go, what do I need right now? Oh, I just need to get up and move, or I need to just be still for a moment, or just feel the weight of sadness, or feel, the disappointment that washes through our bodies when we have something happen to us. As long as we can continue to engage and support our bodies that way, they'll reward us with some relief, and we'll feel better, and we'll be able to stay more engaged, and our bodies will just feel healthier. Just tuning in and not rejecting anything that our bodies are experiencing is a big help towards being well and healthy.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I have had a great time. You have some amazing things to share with our divas out there. And, as I was saying, we would love to have you back on here to have you share more of all what you're doing, because you are doing some crazy, wonderful things. And I'm going to be sharing this. I'm going to be sharing your website on our social media, because I think it's something that everybody needs to see. You're doing such a great thing over in Australia. We want to be a part of that. And I love that. And I can't wait for you to share your story also in an upcoming anthology with the Divas That Care. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Candace. I'm really grateful to be invited to share with that too. Thank you.
Well, we're so excited to have you a part of our family. And, for all of our amazing diva listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you take this show and you share it with all your friends and families. It's because of you that we've continued to do this show for 9 years. And you're always supportive of all of our divas guests that come on this program. And, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm very grateful to all of our listeners, and I'm so grateful to all of our guests. Again, thank you so much to the amazing Cindy that came onto our program today from Australia. And I hope that all of you have a wonderful day. It's because of all of you that, the world is such a great place, and they're doing so many great things. And, the Divas That Care is about using our platform to share all of your stories. So make sure, if you have an amazing diva out there that you think that her story should be shared with all of us, please send her our way, because we would love to talk with her. Our hashtag out there is Divas That Care. So I hope that each and every one of you has a great day. And until next time, take care.